A 47-47 tie in Texas and a double-digit Ossoff lead in Georgia, and the whole party's about to sprint at the wrong one. Guess which? If you're just joining, Maine's out of the nomination drama and into a real general election. Graham Plattner took the Democratic nod, despite the intra-party jitters over his baggage, and Susan Collins is leaning hard on appropriations clout and her earmark record. The last Times Press Herald Siena poll we had showed Plattner narrowly up, 49-47.
This is Senate Pickup Watch. Today, a Texas poll everyone will overread, a Georgia number nobody's talking about, and a Maine travel story that just might do what money couldn't. If you want to keep up with Maine's Senate challenge to Collins, tap follow so the next episode lands in your feed.
From Greg Sargent at the New Republic.
Look, I get it. Democrats have been burned by hopes for a Texas miracle so many times that it feels risky to place stock in this year's Senate race. But a new poll of the contest from the New York Times finds a dead heat, with Democrat James Talarico and Republican Ken Paxton each earning 47% of likely voters. In short, this is a real race in Texas.
47-47. Talarico and Paxton in a dead heat. And it's a New York Times poll, so everyone rightly treats it like the gold standard. This is the number that tests me, because I've spent the week saying red state polling tilts toward incumbents. And here's a Times likely voter screen saying tied. But that's the thing. A likely voter screen in Texas is a bet on who actually turns out, and Texas Democratic turnout has broken that bet a dozen times. Tied on paper, 3 points short on election night. That's the Texas movie.
And I don't care about the poll number the way the rest of political media is about to care about it. Tied is nice. What's Talarico's cash on hand? What's the in-state donor base look like against Paxton and the whole MAGA money apparatus? Because a 47-47 race you can't fund is a headline, not a campaign. Paxton is spending enormous sums right now to define Talarico as unmasculine. You answer that with a paid media budget, and I want to see the number before I get excited.
And watch the next week. Every outlet crowns Texas the shiny pickup, while a cleaner opportunity somewhere else on the board gets less oxygen. Which, by the way, we'll get to when we talk Georgia.
Right. The character numbers are real. Majorities say Talarico's got good moral values. They don't say it about Paxton. It's a genuine asset. But if you can't put it on television, it doesn't move suburban Houston. Here's Fox 5 Atlanta.
Atlanta. Georgia Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff holds a 13-point lead over Republican challenger Mike Collins in the Georgia Senate race, powered by strong party loyalty and advantages on top voter issues like inflation, according to a new Fox News survey.
Fox News has Ossoff up double digits over Mike Collins. And honestly, that's the dog that isn't barking. If you're at the DSCC and you're looking for the surprise pickup, a double-digit lead in a seat you already hold doesn't tell you where that is. It tells you where you can stop babysitting and start moving money somewhere scarier.
Right. And remember, Democrats only flipped this seat in that January 2021 runoff. Ossoff's whole cycle is about proving that wasn't a fluke. A comfortable number here is what you get when you actually build the thing. The number I'd chew on is inflation. 40% of Georgia voters calling it their top Senate issue. Ossoff's up anyway. You're looking at an incumbent who's insulated himself from the national mood, which is exactly why you don't nationalize your candidate.
And I'd stay a little skeptical of the top line. It's Fox. It's one poll. And it's low turnout summer sampling. But even if you shave it down, the direction is clear enough that Georgia stops being the most interesting question. That's why the Texas number earlier matters.
Naked Capitalism with Thomas Ferguson, Paul Jorgensen, Matthias Lalisse, G. Chen.
What can one Senate race reveal about the hidden machinery of American politics? In Maine, donor patterns expose how campaign finance can shape party competition, political narratives, and the choices voters are asked to make long before ballots are counted.
So Ferguson and Jorgensen actually put numbers on it, and the picture on Graham Plattner is exactly what I flagged when this candidacy started. No big money behind him. None. And that matters because he's leading. You can lead a poll and still be structurally underfunded in a way the horse race number never shows you. Money buys field, buys mail, buys the stuff that turns a July lead into November votes.
Here's what's sharp about it, though. It's the inverse of Montana. In Montana, we were staring at dark money flooding in. Plattner's got the opposite problem. A 2-point lead built almost entirely on small-dollar money and earned media. So the clean split is appetite versus amplification. Nobody's inflating Plattner. If there's a lead there, voters put it there on their own.
Right, but appetite doesn't file your absentee ballots. That's the real risk with a candidate who didn't come out of the machine. The enthusiasm's real, and the infrastructure just isn't there to catch it.
And that's where you and I split. You see a fundraising ceiling. I see a signal the two-party donor class can't read because their instruments only measure the big checks that aren't showing up here.
This one's from the Daily Beast.
Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine has racked up tens of thousands in sponsored luxury travel ahead of her brutal battle for re-election in November. Collins, 73, who is seen as a vulnerable incumbent in the upcoming midterm elections, took 5 luxury vacations paid for by private special interests during her 5th term in the Senate, according to documents reviewed by the Daily Beast.
So the Daily Beast has Collins on 5 sponsored luxury trips. Tens of thousands in travel, her husband along for 3 of them, including 6 days at Lake Como on the Aspen Institute's dime.
And her husband's a former lobbyist. So the optics aren't just luxury. It's her former lobbyist husband benefiting from the same donor-adjacent world she legislates over.
Here's why this one actually matters to me, though. Collins survives in Maine on an older, spread-out electorate that likes the steady constituent service brand. An ethics hit is one of the rare things that can move those voters without a challenger spending a dime.
Exactly. The naked capitalism read we just hit says Plattner has almost no big money, so he can't buy this narrative into every suburban county. Earned media does it for him. Lake Como does it for him.
Right. And set against that Siena number, Plattner up 49-47, this is the first outside event this cycle that could actually crack the built-in incumbent advantage.
$1.5 trillion in earmarks she can point to, and the headline is a Rockefeller Foundation villa. Hard to run on service to Maine when the visual is you at a 50-acre estate on Lake Como.
Got thoughts on today's Senate pickup watch? A race we should revisit? Or a correction we need to make? Send us a note at senatepickupwatch@lanternpodcasts.com. We're always glad to hear from you. You'll find links to every story we mentioned in the show notes. So if you want to take a closer look, they're there for you. That's Senate Pickup Watch for today. This is a Lantern podcast.